Hey, GLP-1 plus size community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things. Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster. Confidence higher. Price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
Welcome to the Plus Sides Podcast.
There again.
Where have you been?
We're happy to have you in. Come
I
and
just saw
have
you
a
last
seat.
week.
Come sit us though.
If you're new here, I'm going to tell you who we are and what we do. If you are not new here, this is your cue to fast forward. I am Kim. This is the Plus Sides Podcast, Cracking the Obesity Code, where we are trying to change things. Ultimately, science has known obesity is a disease for over 10 years now, and society did not get the memo. And there have been tremendous treatments in terms of GLP-1 medications, and Kat and I are GLP-1 evangelists. And we
Hallelujah.
really wanted to change things. And so we started this podcast to interview people and let them share their stories about how these medications have changed their life and what their health was like before, so that we can understand and maybe move towards a better and more equitable society. That is the goal. We want you to be able to learn everything that you need to know so you can advocate for your health and also be able to advocate for yourself in society when people start to question this, because it has become like center stage, you know? And so
Absolutely.
that's what we do here. I have had obesity since I was a young girl. I remember my first diet. I was 8 years old. I was standing over a rice cake in the kitchen, drizzling chocolate sauce over it, to try to have something that would taste good to my brain to stay within my points so that I could go to bed and go to sleep. And I have been trying to control the size of my body ever since. And luckily, I have gotten to an incredible place of health since starting on a GLP-1 medication. I've lost 110 pounds. I'm going through perimenopause now, so that's a new adventure. And we're going to have lots of content about that and interviewing some doctors about that too. But definitely this podcast has become, a health podcast, a wellness podcast, focused on what it's like to live with a chronic disease, because we do want you to be the best and healthiest you can be. And that may not be what they say from a BMI perspective, right? There are lots of things that equal health. And so that's what we cover here. Done with my spiel. Kat, who are you? What you
I'll make it
doing?
really fast.
Yeah,
Hey,
yes.
I'm Kat. I lost 70 pounds. I have lost it all on Monjaro, the Monjaros. I've always struggled with obesity. I would say probably as far as I remember, all of my life. Binge eating, crash dieting, eating disorders, all that good stuff. Carried that into adulthood. Um, I am a plus size fitty. I'm still in a plus sized body. I love fitness. I have learned, well, this is before I even had discovered Monjaro, is no amount of boot camp, running, triathlon. I didn't do a triathlon, but no amount of workouts can chase away that insulin resistance
Mhm.
at all. So MJ has been a miracle, kind of,
Yeah.
for me. And going through the perimenopause as well. That was
Mhm.
a lot of fun, but I'm currently on HRT to help get that under control. And right now, currently, I'm post a really tough spin class, and so I'm just gonna chill. This is
Yeah.
like the happiest point of my day is post
Cool.
workout.
Cool. Well, don't chill too much. I need your help to host the show. Okay. We have a cool show today. So, we have two community guests as opposed to just one, and we have a doctor. And we are going to talk a lot about how you can approach this from a couple different ways when you're trying to manage your health and your health goals, when you struggle with obesity or when you struggle with overweight, because different people kind of come to this journey at different times and different ways. And you do want to do what works good for you, but it's good for you to know the options and kind of a path or a plan, I think.
Mhm.
And so we want to make sure we outline that today. And we're going to get started. Okay. All right.
Oh,
I'm
let's
going
get
to
the party
invite in our
started.
community guests. Here we go. Hi, Billy.
Hello, how are y'all doing?
Good. Hello, Colleen.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome to the Plus Side
Thank
Podcast.
you.
We are so glad to have you. I've literally done that on every episode for 2 years now. Welcome, welcome. So, we're so glad to have you here. We want this is a safe space. I'm very excited to hear about your journeys and what that's been like, and kind of how you're managing it, and the tools that you're using. And feel free, of course, to tell us about. We would love to know how you got here. And I don't mean here like the weight you are now. I mean, tell us about what it was like before, and what it's been like through your life and the health conditions and things that you've had, because many of our people and our listeners will be able to relate with that. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Billy, we're going to start with you and then we'll go to Colleen. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Name is Billy. I am down 40 pounds in about 3 months on Zepbound Vials, which is super, super exciting. And I'll kind of talk about my journey a little bit on how I got here. And I'll say, obesity in my family has always been a topic of discussion. And there's a lot of obesity issues in the family. And I would say, as a younger person, growing up in my teens and early 20s, I could eat what I want, do what I want, no issues, literally could eat or drink anything that I wanted. And I think what happened over the years was I had created such maybe addictions or habits to those types of foods. And as I got older, I started kind of moving on this path to where I was kind of losing control of confidence or my body or my weight. And I'll say it was about 9 months ago, my wife and we just had a new baby, so she'll be 1 in 2 weeks. So now time is super flying, and there were some things that happened over, trying to lay on the floor and play, or just that life changes, right? Life changes as far as not being able to do the things physically that I wanted to do. And over the years, I tried all the different things like joining a gym membership and really working out and seeing a lot of, I'd say, discouraging results or lack of results, which made it super discouraging, right? And I kept kind of going back in my mind, like, I never had this problem before, right? How do I deal with this problem? I wouldn't say newer, but over in my 30s, it's a lot harder to do or eat or, drink the things that you wanted to do. So started investigating some ideas, and the wife was super supportive in that. And, found Row and had a really great experience there. And I'll say within just a week or so was starting to see results, which again helped me with my confidence, helped me with feeling like I could really go do these things. And really exciting to see the results. And I'm a big advocate for the confidence that it has brought me to really go on this journey with other people and talk about the journey. I think is really, really important. I think, weight, especially in men or kind of not middle age, but younger middle-aged men, I guess, is kind of something you don't talk about. It's just eat better and just work out more. It's kind of the things people always told me, right? And we know that everybody's body's different. Everybody's the way their body responds to certain things is just different for people. So excited to talk about the journey here, and can excitedly say that I'm approaching what I would call maintenance mode, I think, which is exciting. So the cravings are gone for all the Dr. Peppers or the Dairy Queen blizzards or the things that we all have enjoyed, having over the years. So excited to sit and share my story a little bit more as we go. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Billy, do you okay if I ask you a couple questions?
Please. Yeah.
Okay, great. So a lot of people that come on the show kind of talk about how they didn't know they had food noise until it turned off. Is that something you've experienced on GLP-1s?
Oh yeah, big time, right? I think, you know, there's cravings. I would say that's the word I like to use, at least at home, is all the things I thought I needed, right? All the things that I thought I had to have, or the I work remotely, so I'm on calls all day. I sit kind of at a desk, more 8-10 hours a day. So being uh, more stationary, I think, kind of makes you think, right? And I think the biggest change has been the craving for the sugars or the syrups and all those things that I felt like were there have almost been completely switched with always being thirsty for water now, which is such a crazy thing to say. I was always I hate water, I don't want to drink water, I don't need water, I'll get my water in my sweet tea or whatever, right? The stories that I always have, but the cravings have, I think, shifted, right? So the food dependencies on the fried foods or the salty things, I just don't want them anymore. I don't like them. I don't feel like I need them. And I'll say that lastly, I'll say the amount of those things that I can even eat when I try to eat them has just changed, right? So it's like maybe it's a mental shift in some way. I'm sure there's medical reasons that have happened as well, but drinking a lot more water, which is not something you'd ever see me do a lot of it at work. I probably cringed when I would drink bottles of water before, but now it's kind of my go-to thing now. So
That's awesome. And then in terms of like how you chose which GLP to start with, like how did you make that decision?
yeah, sure. So I'll be totally transparent here. Had no idea, right, to start, and I went with what I thought the insurance was going to cover to begin with. Come to find out, they weren't going to cover anything. So I went
Mm,
with what I felt like, and went through pre-authorizations and back and forth, and got to a point to where at the time it was like, well, let me pay for it, right? Let me just pay for whatever I think is more affordable for me right now, and just see how it works, right? If that doesn't work, I'll start with the lower dose. I'll start with different, kind of different price points. And luckily for me, my job has a kind of a wellness benefit. So they reimburse a little bit. So although it's not insurance, I'm still getting reimbursed some there. So it was more what I felt was cost effective. And I'm sure we'll talk about this more later. So I don't want to get into too many details, but even the costs that I'm spending now are being saved so much because I'm not needing to go get DoorDash, 3 times a week, or so there's really some financial gains from it as well. But yeah, it was, what did I think the insurance was going to cover? What did it end up not covering? Then what could I actually afford to try out? And then when I saw the results, it was, well, that's worth it. Let's try it again and try it again. And again, I'm only about a little over 3 months in. So I've had a few months of it, and seen some great results so far.
That's awesome. Have you done like any kind of baseline blood work or something to see like if your health's improved in different areas?
I have not yet. I've got that coming up, so that's
Coming up.
on the
Yeah.
path. As we get into summer, and as I
Mm.
am, worried about my summer bod a little bit more now, but I got to look good at the pool as we, or look better at the pool rather. Maybe not look good yet, but not yet. But that's something that I would
Yeah.
definitely consider doing for sure.
As you get closer to maintenance, do you feel like that you might go on a maintenance dose of the medicine, or are you planning to get off of it?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a maintenance dose, right? I haven't seen, again, I've been on a weekly, kind of a weekly dose for the last, I guess I'm on 12 weeks now. I think my shots tonight. So
Mhm.
my wife, when she was pregnant, she had gestational diabetes. So I got
Mhm.
to give her the shot, or I had to give her the shot every night in their
Oh.
last trimester. So she likes returning the favor, giving me the shots in the evenings on my week. So I think that's her get back at me type thing. So, anyways, I think I'll continue a dose, right? I think the way the energy levels that I feel, and the I don't want to say fear of what I'd feel like not on it. I don't
Mhm.
think that's really what it is, but that is in the back of my mind, right? Like I don't want to backslide in a way that I start, moving out of it. So I'll probably just extend my doses out a little bit further, and see
Yeah.
how that goes. And then over, a year's time or something, see how that, gets there. I don't want to,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. And did you choose to do compound during this time or did you go with name brand?
So I went with Zepbound Vials. So I'm on
Zepbound
Zepbound.
Vials.
Yep, on Zepbound now. And that was the again, that was I would say I didn't know a lot of the difference between them, to be completely honest with you. I did some research, but as you know, reading anything online, there's a lot of options, there's a lot of things people say. And I said, well, let's just see what this one does for me. And if it doesn't work, I'll try something different. But because the results were so good, I figured,
Yeah.
don't change it. Let's stick with what I've got for now.
Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix
Don't
it.
fix it.
I get
Exactly.
it. That's awesome. Thank you. Well, we're going to invite Colleen to the stage. Bear with me. Hi, Colleen.
Hi.
Hi.
Good
So
word on the stage.
we want to give you the space to tell us more about your story, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, sure. So my story is probably a little bit different. I grew up athletic, running track, doing gymnastics, riding horses. I ran everywhere. And weight was never an issue for me. I mean, all the way through my first pregnancy, I lost all that baby weight. Then, come to mature adulthood and second pregnancy, twin pregnancy that was high risk, that I did IVF. So I think that might have had something to do with it, but all of a sudden metabolism completely gone. Also was diagnosed with a thyroid issue. So I have an autoimmune issue that causes thyroid issues. And after that, the weight just kept coming on and coming on and coming on. And like I said, I worked out. I watched what I ate. I was doing, 12 to 1500 calories a day and still gaining the weight. So fast forward, menopause, all that fun stuff. Nothing was working. I couldn't get anything to work. So I started doing the research, read about GLP-1s, researched and researched and researched, talked to my doctor about it. The doctor, unfortunately, my GP, not so helpful. So kind of, knowing from my IVF journey that, you really sometimes have to take your health into your own hands, and not always rely on what certain people are telling you. So again, did all the research, landed on GLP-1s, thought, okay, I'm going to try this. But again, my doctor wasn't very helpful. So I found Roe, actually. And funny enough, because I researched several different telemed companies to get access to this med, and already had a previous relationship with Roe, because funny enough, I did Latisse for a period of, a vain period of time, through Roe, and reached out to them, signed up. The process so easy, got on a call with the doctor, talked about my options. I really wanted to do Zepbound wasn't available yet, so they gave me a prescription. I had a prescription for Wegovy, but at the height, I think that was June of 23, at the height of, there wasn't any. I waited 6 months trying to get a prescription filled, and then watching the feeds, and Roe comes out and says, oh, we've got Zepbound becoming available. And I was right on my messages to my provider and saying, okay, can we switch? And so we did. And that was in December of 23. I had Roe took care of my PAs, got my insurance information all taken care of. I didn't have to jump through any hoops. And I think I took my first shot the end of December 28th, I believe, to be exact. I was anxious and excited all at the same time. I have to say, the food noise issue, again, I didn't think I had food noise. I didn't realize that glass of wine I was having in the evening was actually a craving. And until it turned off, like you said, till it turned off. First month in, I think I lost 7 pounds, and I have been on it for about 16 months now, and down 70 pounds.
70 is a good sweet spot.
We're all gasping. Kat's been down 72. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, not crazy, like, but crazy good, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys have both lost fast, you know?
Well, I feel like it was fast at first and then it was slow and steady. It was
Oh,
about
yeah,
a
that makes
Right.
sense.
pound and a half a
Mhm.
week. And
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering, so like when you were going through something like Kat and I are going through perimenopause, and I struggled with fertility because of PCOS and being obese and all of that too. And I had two miscarriages before I got pregnant with my son. And I often say, like, I wish that like I had known about this medicine in 2012 because I would probably have more children. So I think there's a lot of people that we hope to be touching who are thinking about building their family, hopefully in their
Mhm.
30s and early, who know that if you struggle with PCOS or you struggle with these different things, or maybe, fertility is an issue, this could possibly help. And I hope we have more science to back that up over time. But I'm wondering for you, like when you were struggling with when you did IVF, like I think that's like a big thing, and many, many, many people in our community have had to do IVF. Do you feel like your body changed a lot when you did that in terms of like how it stored weight?
oh, 100%. I mean, we were really fortunate with our IVF journey and
Mhm.
ended up with a beautiful set of twin daughters out of
Nice.
that.
Great.
Uh, but yeah, I think that after that pregnancy, the weight never fully came off like
Mm,
it did with my son.
yeah.
The weight never fully came off, and then slowly over time, I think that anytime that you're um, using hormones to adjust how your body is naturally balanced to get to that end result
Yeah.
that yeah, it can't help but mess with it.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I think it's interesting. We have so many people come from different walks of life, right? That people never struggled with their weight, and then people who like Kat and I have struggled forever, you know?
Mhm.
Um, I think it's very cool to hear like about when people come in and I think like when you were younger, like you probably didn't even think about it. Like think
Oh,
about people that were like overweight or you being
mhm.
overweight or what you ate or anything like that. Because
Nope.
Kat and I often say we ate like everybody else, but our friends, when they ate McDonald's and all the things, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like ultimately for us, like we still would gain or we would still not lose, and no matter, and we were both very active growing up. And it's just so crazy, like the difference, you know? I feel like that I always want people to understand that. I'm curious to your thoughts on that. Cause like
Yeah.
if you think about it, like everybody has a friend that can eat like a trash panda and never gain a pound, right? And never
I
gain
do,
a
huh?
but then you get to go there with a certain time in your life where you've always been this way. And like, why can't people understand the exact opposite can also be true, you know? So, I mean, obviously with Roe, I'm sure, and it's nice to, I think, be a part of it and see other people going on their journeys, which is really cool. But thank you. Before we move on, because I do want to invite in Dr. Steve to talk more. Is there anything else that you wanted to share with us?
Oh, I mean, I would just agree with you. It was a culture shock for me to go
Yeah.
from being that trash panda, eating like a trash
Yeah.
panda,
Yeah.
to really eating healthy and watching everything, and still it wasn't moving the needle
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that doctors for a long time, and again, maybe because we didn't know, right? Many doctors that have been on the show who are obesity specialists now have said, "Hey, listen, we had like one class, and that
Yeah.
class was, don't let them get there. The
Right.
class was don't let them get there." And then when you talk to them, you need to tell them to diet and exercise because they're going to end up with heart disease, they're going to end up with diabetes, and they're going to die. Like that, like all of them have been like that. That was
Yeah.
the not culture, but like that was sort of the system, right?
Mm.
And
Go
so,
back to norm. Yeah.
yeah, so I think we have a lot of people that have a little mistrust and I think that's why a lot of them go to social and TikTok and all those things before they talk to their doctor because there's not a lot of trust there because we've sort of been given this prescription of eat
Mhm.
less, move more, and that is what equals weight loss. And if it doesn't work for you, then there's something wrong with you, right? Like
Yeah.
you're clearly not telling me the truth. You definitely are overeating. You're definitely not moving. And so I think because of that, it changes. And I do find we've met some people on this journey who are like you, who when that shift happened, you were like, wait a second, something's
Yeah.
going on here. You know what I mean? And I think
Mhm.
that, and we'll get into this with Dr. Steve, but it's because weight regulation comes down to the brain. So let's invite him in and we can talk about it. Okay. All right.
Come on. There
Welcome.
we go. Here comes Dr. Steve.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Absolutely, we're glad to have you. Dr. Steve, I'm going to tell you our classic question that we always ask everybody, which is tell us a little bit about who you are and how you help people.
So I'm Steve Silvestro. I am in charge of patient and public facing education at Roe.
Cool.
So I create all the material that we hope helps patients better understand their medications and their treatment so they can get the most out of their treatment journey.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to like how you provide, so you do education and stuff. So, do you help Row like with sort of like what their therapy should look like for people in that way? Do you guide them in that way?
So there are a handful of us on a clinical team, and we all really work together.
Cool.
So I do contribute to some
Hmm.
of how the clinical pathway is designed, but
Hmm.
primarily from a patient lens.
Nice.
Okay.
So my real focus is it's communication, it's understanding, it's helping to ease the patient experience. So for example, uh, if we are trying out if we're hoping to launch a new medication. So for
Hmm.
example, I know that we've talked about Zepbound Vials.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I might be the person that gets the demo. Um, and then I have to walk through, and I'm the person who then makes the instruction video to help guide patients
Okay.
through drawing up the medication from that vial, so that we try to make it as easy and non-scary as possible. Because for many people, Billy's wife aside, this is their first time dealing with
Yeah.
injections.
Yeah.
And so we try to make it so that it's comfortable, and really easy. And that really is my role. So I try to think about all the
Yeah.
different angles of what it's going to be like to be treated on the Row platform.
So sort
And
of like the patient experience or the user experience, but for like a patient, like
exactly,
which
exactly.
makes sense because I think, and I'm wondering, like, so my background is in product marketing. So we a lot of times think of different personas. And at the end of the day, you could say that a patient is someone that wants to lose weight, but ultimately people have different reasons for wanting to lose weight and the way and how they got to the weight that they're at. Right. So a
Yep.
perfect example, right, is Billy and Colleen, two different paths. So when you're, I assume, like figuring out what that content needs to look like and making sure that that's a good experience, are you considering like the different ways that people like someone like a Kat and I, right, who struggled with our whole life, Billy, who just struggled a little bit later, Colleen, who struggled much later after pregnancy. Do you think about that in the type of information you put out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm really blessed to work with a great team of people.
Mhm.
Alice is somebody whose name people may recognize if they have
Mhm.
taken part and seen our content on social
Mhm.
media or on Reddit and elsewhere, because she does a really great job of monitoring what people are talking about and what people are asking about and having a hard time with, what their motivations are, um, and bringing that to us so that we can then make sure that we incorporate that into the patient experience online.
Mhm.
And this really is something that we do and we focus on right from the start. So the most important thing for a clinician to do is to listen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So step one is to make sure that you ask the right questions
Mhm.
and you give people an opportunity to share the information that matters the most. So when patients come to Row, they fill out a dynamic online visit with a whole host of questions. We ask about medical history in a whole bunch of different ways. We ask about motivations. We ask about why it is that they are hoping to work with us and work with providers who use our platform, what their motivations are.
Mhm.
And then at follow-up visits and all throughout the journey, similar types of online visits and questions are part of that journey. And the key factor there is that we have a team of clinicians who are heavily involved in creating those tools to help providers make the best and the most personalized treatment choices. Um, those clinicians use their years of experience working with
Mhm.
patients and treating patients to come up with the best questions to ask so that we can give the most personalized care possible. Um, as part of that platform, also, those same clinicians use their clinical insight to to decide how to flag the most important responses that patients give us and flag them to providers so that then the providers who use the platform can most easily see that information and decide which factors might influence the type of medication that's selected, whether it's something that stands out in somebody's medical history, their own experience with their weight in the past, their own goals. So actually, I'll share a story. Um, we have one Row member who is a pilot. And when he joined Row, he shared that sleep apnea was something that he was dealing with. And he was really worried about the pressure that was putting on his heart. He was also worried that he wasn't going to be able to pass some of the rigorous exams, physical exams that the FAA requires pilots to pass. And he also didn't want to have to deal with lugging around a CPAP every time he flew for his job. So in addition to treating obesity, Zepbound is FDA approved to treat sleep apnea in people who have obesity. And that's because in order to have a high chance of fighting sleep apnea caused by excess weight, you need to lose about 10% or more of your body weight. And with Zepbound, up to 90% of people taking it will lose 10% or more. So it's a really great choice for somebody who has obesity and has sleep apnea. So when this member joined Row, his provider was able to listen to those goals and decide that Zepbound was the best choice for him. Now he's lost over 50 pounds and he no longer has sleep apnea. So really, ultimately, part of like what I do and what a lot of the team does is really try to make sure that we give folks the opportunity to share their goals and then create a platform so that our providers can really hear those goals and respond to them as effectively as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think that's really important for, medication selection. Like again, like to be able to hopefully be able to get, your insurance to approve it. I think as we move closer, or as these, pharmaceutical companies have scaled, right, to be able to attempt to meet demand better, more and more people are going to need to try to get this approved through insurance or have at least a path, right, to semi-affordable, which I think is one thing that's been good with the Zepbound vials, right, is getting it to a close enough to what people were paying with compound Tirzepatide and knowing they're getting brand and all of that. And I think that's important, and I'm very glad that workaround, and I say workaround because what we've sort of found is that there's so many people that can't leverage the coupon, right? Because they don't have insurance or they have Medicare, but they couldn't pay $1,000 a month, So I think it's really great that we've at least gotten there, to have something. And of course, we want more options, and we want it to be less expensive. But knowing that Row, I think, has a team, right, that really tries to get things approved through insurance is really great. I would say not a lot of telehealths do that. They really don't. So I think it's cool that you guys do,
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question about Row as well. You mentioned your clinical staff to create the varying questions for your patients. It just popped in my head. I'm thinking, does Row utilize, like, say, clinicians that have like varying levels of practice here and there, like specialists, whatnot, not just like say obesity, but maybe endocrinologists and things of that nature?
Yeah, so there are a wide range of clinicians who are part of the Row team
hmm
who help to build out the platform and help to ensure that we ask the right questions. We make the offerings as malleable and as tailorable as
hmm
possible and really help people fix what they're coming to us to achieve. But then there's also the wide panel of providers who use the Row platform to treat patients, and those providers often have many different backgrounds, and they will also, based on their own experience, incorporate that into their treatment of patients and really work together. They often speak together and sort of consult each other, so that when you are being treated by a provider who uses the Row platform, um,
hmm
in a sense, you're kind of being treated by somebody who has access to providers of a wide range of backgrounds and can learn from each other and really take all that experience and knowledge to then drill it down to what's going to work best for you as an individual. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it
Very,
sounds pretty
very
cool.
cool. Very cool. And very
Sounds like you
unique,
need a nerd.
really. Very unique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very unique. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I got another question too.
Sure. Fire away.
Yeah. Colleen mentioned IVF and all the hormones that were
Mm.
at play, which can complicate weight loss. From a clinical perspective, how do thyroid disorders impact weight management, and how does Zepbound or other GLP-1 treatments help patients like Colleen?
Yeah, I'm going to bet that Colleen's experience is something that probably resonates with a lot of people
Yeah.
because, especially women, hypothyroidism is so common. About 1 in 20 people have hypothyroidism. So if you think of a kindergarten class, 1 out of all those kids will someday have hypothyroidism. But women are 10 times more likely to develop it. And that risk actually increases as you age. So that 1 out of every 8 women will experience thyroid disease at some point in their lifetime. So it's super common. So how does it impact weight? All right, in middle school, in high school, we learned that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? That's the phrase that everybody learns. And it's kind of funny that we all learn that same phrase. So I tend to think of the thyroid as like the steam engine of the body. If it burns too hot, your heart races, you sweat, you can't tolerate heat, your metabolism goes haywire, and you can't hang on to weight. That's hyperthyroidism. But if it burns too cool, that's hypothyroidism. And one of the big consequences of that is that your metabolism slows down and you gain weight. So with hypothyroidism, whenever you try to lose weight, you're now fighting against 2 big barriers. You've got all the hormones and
Mhm.
factors that are involved in obesity and want to keep you at your set point and don't want you to go any lower. And if anything, only go higher. And you're battling against low thyroid hormone that's keeping your metabolism slowed down.
Mm.
So the first thing that you'll want to do is of course work with an endocrinologist and try to get those thyroid levels where they're supposed to be.
Mhm.
But then GLP-1s can really play a role and help in a lot of ways if you are also having a hard time losing weight because of your thyroid. The first is going to be the same way that it's going to help people without thyroid disease. So reducing hunger, reducing craving is helping, slow down gut motility. But GLP-1s will also help with fat metabolism. So hypothyroidism is linked to increased fat storage and having a hard time using fat for energy. And GLP-1s help the body burn fat by essentially using it for fuel. GLP-1s help out with insulin management. Hypothyroidism can often lead to insulin resistance, and GLP-1s help improve your body's sensitivity to insulin. If you go back to the powerhouse, mitochondria and cells don't work as efficiently in people who have hypothyroidism. And there are some studies that suggest that GLP-1s can actually improve mitochondrial function. So that might help increase the amount of energy that your cells have and have an impact on fatigue. And then the big one is inflammation. Hypothyroidism is often associated with an increase in low-grade inflammation, and that can really do a number on metabolism and play a role in weight gain. And we're starting to really find out that GLP-1s have anti-inflammatory effects, which can help fight against that. So there are a lot of ways that
Yeah,
GLP-1s help if you have
sounds like it. Yeah.
hypothyroidism. It's really pretty cool. One thing that I probably should say, just for anyone listening, to keep in mind is that if you do have hypothyroidism and you're on medication, if you start a GLP-1 and your weight starts to decrease, your body might absorb your thyroid medication differently. And so this is one area where we really recommend that you keep in touch with the providers prescribing your thyroid medication to see whether that dose needs to be adjusted over time.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Now it made me think about it because mine is actually elevated. I and yeah, my doctor does make me come in every 6 months to check. So
Yeah.
okay.
Today's episode is brought to you by Ro, a telehealth platform that's changing the game of GLP-1 access. What sets Ro apart? Roe understands the challenges of navigating insurance hurdles and the skyrocketing prices of GLP-1 medications. That's why they specialize in getting insurance approvals for GLP-1s. And if insurance is a barrier, they go a step further by prescribing brand name Zepbound Vials for prices close to those of compound GLP-1s. With Roe, you're not just getting a prescription, you're getting a partner in your journey that's helping you access affordable treatment and guiding you every step of the way. Whether it's insurance approvals or cost effective alternatives, Roe is here to make sure that you get the medication you need. Visit row.co/plus sides with a Z today to see how they can help you take control of your weight management journey with affordable, accessible care. That's row.co/plus sides with a Z, making healthcare work for you. Check out the link in our show notes for more details.
That's good information to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So, always get it
Um,
checked.
we have had people on, or we've been doing this for almost 2 years now, 2 years next month. Crazy. And we
Yes.
interview doctors, experts in this area every week. And one thing I will tell you that all of them say is something that you just touched on, which is that basically most people that have had obesity for a long time have insulin resistance, and these medications work when you have insulin resistance, right?
Mhm.
And then I think that there's a lot of sort of misinformation out there around GLP-1s and that they just help you eat less. Like that's and I think that like
Mm.
if it was just about that, why would we take the most expensive medication there is at the most scarcity that has the most bias and hate and cruelty around it if it was just about eating less? Because we have plenty of medications, right, that we have used to treat
Mhm.
weight in the past. Maybe you can have us understand a little bit, and you've gone into it some, but what are some other ones that were kind of main? I mean, I'm off the top of my head because I've done all of them. I'm thinking phentermine. Like, how is that different from like what a GLP-1 can help with?
Mhm.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, I think that if it was all just about eating less,
Yeah.
we've done that before.
Yes.
We've
Indeed.
had those medications.
Mhm.
They haven't produced the same type of results, the life-changing results that we're seeing with GLP-1.
Yeah.
Um, and we're continually learning more about the way that GLP-1s actually have the impact that they do when it comes
Mhm.
to obesity and overweight. So when first off, you mentioned insulin resistance.
Mhm.
GLP-1s were originally improved to treat diabetes. I mean, people think about them as a new medication. They've
Yeah.
been around for 30 years. It's just that they've only in the last several years been improved for weight management. Um, so when we first started to really look at this in terms of body weight, we really focused initially on the role in the gut. And we
Mhm.
talked a lot about how GLP-1 slowed down how quickly your stomach empties, which makes you feel full faster and longer. And we also know that GLP-1 affects the brain. But for a while, we really thought that the slowdown in the stomach and the slowdown in how quickly it empties was the main way that it was helping with managing weight. But now the tide's starting to really shift. And we're starting to recognize that the real impact of GLP-1s on body weight is through their effect on the brain. Um, we know that they act on areas of the brain that are in charge of satiety. So they keep you feeling full faster and longer.
Mhm.
We know they act on areas of the brain in charge of cravings. So they cut down on food noise. We also know, and I think Billy touched on this actually,
Mhm.
we see all the time that people say that they're making healthier choices as when they're on a GLP-1, and that's not something that is advertised as a clinical benefit, but it's something that we observe all the time.
Yeah.
And it may partly be due to the fact that we're starting to see research showing that GLP-1s act on areas of the brain that are in charge of stress, our internal reward system, addiction. They're being studied to be used potentially for different types of addiction down the road. So the reality is that it's all these factors together that
Yeah.
result in the effects that a person experiences when they're taking medication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think that probably in the not too distant future,
Mhm.
I bet we're going to start to see research on how the changes in appetite and the food choices that are made when taking a GLP-1
Mhm.
have an impact on the gut flora, all the gut bacteria.
Oh, I'm
Uh,
so curious. Oh,
yeah,
I'm such a nerd for this stuff, clearly. I am too. I wonder because when I tell people Like, don't get me wrong, I like a meatball sandwich and I will eat some garbage every now and then. It's just, I eat it every now and then. I eat a little bit of it, right? And that's what people have been saying to me forever, my whole, why can't you just do everything in moderation? And I'm like, because my body will not allow for it.
Right.
I tell Kat all the time,
Yeah.
my favorite thing is like either salmon or a steak and Brussels sprouts. I would rather have that than anything else, you know? And
Mhm.
I do have times of stress and I still have a cycle and it dysregulated my cycle. That's a whole other thing. Right. And all of that. I still have those moments, but ultimately they're usually few and far between and they kind of cycle out and then I
Mhm.
want my Brussels sprouts again. And there's us Brussels sprouts also help raise your GLP-1. But I think that it's interesting that we don't think about this in the ways that it's of health, right? All of the sort of messaging is about like, let's lose weight, right? And I think that that's because when you go to the doctor, they say to you, you got to lose some weight. Like I'm telling you, I had an experience. I've had several experiences with doctors where a woman, I was in my 20s, and the woman walks in the door. I had never met her before. She was a new doctor, and she said to me, "Your weight's a concern." And first of all, I'm like 20, so stop. And of course it's a concern, but like, could you say hello? Like, and I think that a lot has shifted around this, and I think that there are these underlying pieces and these underlying dysfunctions, and it does seem like GLP-1s really do address more problems at the core. And you hear that a lot, right? I can't imagine you don't hear this, Dr. Steve. Like people being like, "You're not addressing the actual problem. It's just a quick fix." Like, what do you say to that?
I mean, look, there are a lot of things that are contributing that
Yeah.
are bigger problems to tackle, right? I mean, food supply and the types of things that we put into our food. I mean,
Yeah.
MSG, if you haven't noticed, MSG's made a comeback in the last
Yeah. Why?
15 years or so.
Yeah.
The entire job of MSG in food is to make you crave more of it.
Jeez.
And so I think that's one thing to
Is that why you eat
hold
Chinese
at the
food
top.
and like in 2 hours you're hungry again? Is that
Who
what it
knows? Who knows?
Could be. But
is?
no, so the real thing is that ultimately we've finally started to shift the conversation, and you with your podcast have actually have played a big role in this. We've moved the conversation inch by inch
Yes.
away from this is a failing
Yes.
of willpower. Why can't you just choose to do X, Y, and Z?
Mhm.
And finally to this is a disease.
Yeah.
How you got here doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Medical conditions, medications, all kinds of things can have brought you to a point where you're now struggling with obesity or overweight. Obesity and overweight, that's a disease.
Mhm.
We know that we are essentially built to hang on to weight once we have it. That the simplest way to think about it is that if we are cave people, our bodies are built to fight against starvation. So when we go through long periods as a cave person, there's not a whole lot of food around. Our body is built to maintain the weight that we have
Yeah.
and not just lose it. But we're not built for the modern era where we don't have those long periods of starvation for the majority of us.
Mhm.
And so we have these hormones built in to essentially prevent us from maintaining any weight loss that we achieve. So that's why a lot of times you have, try some fad diet, you try something for 30 days and you lose some weight, and then it comes back because your body says, hey, wait a minute, you've lost some weight. We're not supposed to be here. Your set point was way back up there.
Yeah.
Here's this slew of hormones to make you hungry again.
Yeah.
And that's not your
Interesting.
fault. That's not your fault.
Enter Colleen. What do you feel that, Colleen? Did you
Oh,
feel that way?
oh
Like what
yeah.
Steve is talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Yeah. Because that's what happened with you, right? Like, I
Right.
mean, right? And then things change and your hormone changed, and there's nothing you can do about it, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But Dr. Steve, there are people, right, that, and I, I recently one night was dead scrolling, danger, and came across Skinny Talk. And Skinny Talk is a group. I want to have them on the
You
show.
don't want any parts of
I'm
this on
challenging all this stuff. But
it.
Skinny Talk are people who maybe were struggling with like 20 or 30 pounds, or
Mhm.
it could be 8 pounds, and they sort of like it's sort of like Jillian Michaels style, but like not as toxic. But it's very much like a you just need to eat less, your backside's big, like all of these different kind of things. And many people there consider that motivating. They dig that vibe, you know what I mean? And so I think that it's there's a lot of people though that can lose weight and they can keep it off. So there's reasons for that, right? Like certain people that may have been obese for quite a while. Like, is it a timing thing? Because we do talk a lot about BMI, right? And some doctors have been like, BMI is garbage, but it's all we kind of have, right? And then other people are talking about kind of the new ways to measure obesity and overweight. Maybe could you explain that kind of the differences a little bit here? Because some people will say like, if you just eat less, you are going to lose weight. And there are some people where that works. So there's a reason why people think that, right?
Sure. So I think that we look for easy explanations of things. The easiest way to explain weight gain and weight loss is to say it's calories in and calories out. That's all it
Right.
is, right? It's just math. Do the math and you should be fine. But that's not the case for most people. So there are a whole host of things at play. Kat, you talked about menopause, right?
Yep.
During menopause, your hormones change. You decrease in estrogen. Your body shifts where it stores fat, from the thighs and the hips to the abdomen. Your metabolism slows down. And so now it's not just a matter of changing the number of calories that you eat. It's a matter of dealing with these shifts that are happening inside your body. And the same with, let's say, you mentioned PCOS or
Hmm.
IVF. You're now the balance of hormones in your body is different from, say, my body. And it might be really easy for one person to lose weight just by making a simple change. And for others, we're all unique. And the whether it's the hormones, genes that will impact how your body responds to blood glucose, how much leptin or ghrelin or other hormones you have, and how those receptors work inside your body, that's going to differ among different people. And all those things factor in to be a whole lot more than just calories in and calories out.
Can you explain a little bit about ghrelin and leptin so we can sometimes I think that people have an easier time advocating for their health if they can understand what's going on, right? So if maybe they can understand that because I'm starting to see that kind of float around more lately. People are like, I don't get it. What is it? What's happening?
Yeah, sure. So actually, there are a whole handful of hormones that influence hunger and cravings and body weight. Leptin and ghrelin are probably the two that are talked about most commonly. Um, I tend to use sort of personal mnemonics of ghrelin is like grr. It makes your stomach makes you hungry. So when ghrelin is high, you're hungrier. Leptin is like lose. So when leptin is high, you're not as hungry. It's easier to think about losing weight. And these two hormones are in balance in your body, and they shift throughout the day, and they shift based on how you're eating and what you're doing. Um, and but what we find is that different people may have different sensitivities to those hormones. People's lifestyle may influence those hormones. So, for example, um, poor sleep or folks who work night shifts,
Hmm.
we know tend to have higher ghrelin and lower leptin. Um, and that's something where it like kind of feeds on itself then too, because let's say you have poor sleep and so you have higher ghrelin, you gain more weight. As you gain weight, perhaps now and over time you develop sleep apnea. Sleep apnea gives you worse sleep. You're not getting as much oxygen in your body and your brain overnight as you sleep. So now the sleep you do get isn't so great. And so ghrelin is high and you gain weight, and it cycles all along. But yeah, those are two of the more commonly discussed hormones out of a whole range that influence hunger, cravings,
Yeah.
and body weight.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting and like people can definitely I do think too, like, I hear a lot of people being like, you have got to make lifestyle modifications, like when you're on these medications and stuff. And like, hot take on this. And everybody's different, right? I kind of automatically did. Because I feel like the underlying and I've heard doctors say, not on this show because they know better, but I've heard doctors say or other people say, well, that's just because you lost weight, you had more confidence, you were feeling better, so you wanted to eat better. No, I've had that happen a bazillion times in my life. That's not what it was. Literally, the way I think and what I want to do has shifted. Like, and I think that we like, and I've had lots of doctors talked about this, exercise and diet. And I know this is a hot take. I feel like every time I say this, something's going to eat me. But exercise and diet are not a prescription, right, to treat obesity, right? They are a prescription for your health, right? They help your
I would
joints,
say overall,
right?
arguably, I say just
overall health.
overall
Overall health, like
health.
your joints
Wellness.
and
Mhm.
making and I would love to know like more details about that. And eating nutritious food. We just had a chef on the show to talk. That's on a GLP-1 to talk about like different ways for people, things they could eat and how they can optimize protein and fiber and all this stuff. Because if you eat less, you do want to optimize and make sure you're not malnourished, right? Because you do get to a point on these medications where you do stop losing, else we would wither away to nothing, and that's not what we want, right? we want to be at a sustainable weight. But I think that I automatically just wanted to do those things. It really wasn't, and I did not diet culture this. Like I've done every other diet in my whole life where I went and got my gym outfit and I went and got because I had to be looking cute, and I went and got all the things I needed. And I
still like gym outfits. Come on.
Cass got so many gym outfits.
I have
And
an active wear addiction.
She does look cute. And but I didn't do any of that. And this was and I think it's because I was ignorant. Like I actually kind of went into this blind because of the timing, right? This wasn't all blown up on social and stuff yet. This was in summer 2022. This was like when the coupon was out, dun, 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 and you could get it for $25, right? And we all just kind of started talking about it. And I remember that we were all kind of diet culturing it on TikTok. And the ones who were creating then, we were doing shot day videos and weigh-in day videos. And it was all about like accountability. And it was just very, very toxic. And I just think that it's because it's what we know, right? Like that's what we know is the whole like accountability and hashtag skinny talk. Like that's the kind of stuff that we knew and we understood is that's how you lose weight effectively. But then because we were all kind of doing it at the same time, we started having videos like, is it really quiet for you guys up here? Like, are you noticing that like your joints don't hurt? And I've never had this before. And are you noticing you don't want alcohol? Like we were having conversations on TikTok and like lives and making videos about it. So it's like, it's just shifted and become so different. So I feel like the whole idea of your best like self in the healthiest way that you can be, definitely nutrition and movement. Like I won't even call it diet and exercise anymore because it drives me crazy. And I don't even call it lifestyle changes because I do think that most people were sick and you treat the sickness and that kind of all those things follow. At least that's what I've seen in our community and people that have been on the show. And what you've seen, like working at Roe and the changes in patients, does it seem similar to that?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to ask each of you the same question.
Yeah.
Did you experience food noise prior to GLP-1s?
I didn't know.
I still have it. I still have it. I feel like we talk about this a lot on the show. I still feel like it hasn't completely quieted it for me, but it gives me a good wall. So I definitely am consuming less. I'm still craving a glass of wine here and there, but it's definitely a lot less.
Yeah.
But I was going to Overeaters Anonymous before this because I didn't know what to do. But yeah, so
right,
I
sure.
still kind of have it a little bit.
So I think there's a difference between food noise and hunger, and I've been learning the difference. And that's been weird. But I've been doing it 2.5 years now, right? So once I kind of hit, like I would say like a year to a year and a half in, then I was like, oh, I'm hearing food noise again. And I was in straight panic. You know what I mean? And then I was like, wait a minute, I think maybe I'm just hungry. And then I sort of had to learn that was a different way that maybe my body was working like it should, right? And then it was like, all right, how do we eat, right? And how do we think about this? And I think the whole idea of mindful eating and eating with intention sort of was a big journey. Like learning all of this is important. And that is why having a community and a good partner and a good clinician, and a good program and all of these things, they matter because people don't know that. They think it's like, let me go take Metabolife. Let me go take Phenermine and I'm just going to go off on my own and eat less and lose weight. You know what I mean? And it's just not like that. It's a treatment for a disease, I'm wondering too, like Kat and I were talking a lot about sort of maintenance, and Billy's mentioning kind of going into maintenance too, right? And I think there's some people that have the idea of goal weights, right? When when they're on this journey. I actually never set one. And I think it's because I never thought it was possible, to be honest. And I still now am in an obese BMI. I'm still in a big body, but I was like I think about it more size wise. I was in a 26, 28 and very sick and inflamed and hurting all the time, so much pain. And now I'm a 14, and and then Kat, very similar, right? Is the same sort of way, but we still have sort of landed in a maintenance in a big body, no matter what we do in terms of changing how we move or how we eat, it doesn't seem to go much further. And I'm wondering, like, you have these like different patients coming at you from different weights, when they sort of get to this level where it's like, have you lost enough? Do we do combined treatments? Like, do you need to go have surgery now? Like, I feel like that question is starting to come up more and more. And I'm curious, like, from a clinical perspective, how you feel about that. And then maybe if you have information about conversations Ro's having about that, because you guys, I feel like, are very innovative and you're always trying to like continue to mold like what you provide to people, based on what they need. So I'm curious, if you could give us two perspectives, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, sure. Real quick, just to tie up the last, the reason I asked about food noise is you think about, you mentioned making healthier choices and being able to do all these extra things that you weren't able to do before. And just think of how much you can now accomplish and how much freedom you have inside, because food noise is, even if it's not gone away entirely, like Kat, you're experiencing, if it's just quieter and you have that wall, so I think that's a big factor
I love the
into
wall.
why it's often easier. Patients often report that it's easier to make healthier choices.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have conversations all the time about goal weights and maintenance, and we do ask patients what their goal weight may be, but we don't make it a requirement.
That's nice.
Because, and this was something we did discuss a good long time ago, was that not everyone needs to have a goal weight. We don't necessarily always even want to encourage the idea of a goal weight, especially if you're not coming to us with that idea in the first place. And ultimately, the idea of a weight is what we've been trying to say through this whole mission all this time, is that the number on a scale isn't the whole picture.
Totally.
And so setting a goal that is a number on a scale can be a useful part of the treatment. It for a number of reasons, whether it's something that is motivating to somebody, if that's your motivation, and we're talking about the other things that are benefits there, that's okay. But as you say, like, finding sort of maintenance and settling in at a BMI that somebody might say is, well, this shouldn't be your BMI. Well, that's where really the conversations about weight, I don't see many of the different opinions about how you talk about weight as having to be totally separate camps. So I can see that you can be healthy at any body weight. You can be. Carrying excess weight can increase the chances of developing health conditions. Okay, so you can have both of those conversations. So it's not saying you have overweight or obesity and that's bad in some way and we have to fix that because I'm looking at these numbers, or I'm saying you can be healthy anyway. It's both together. And so when you're working with, again, I should qualify. I mean, I work on helping with the education and the material. I
Yeah.
don't directly treat patients through the
Yeah.
platform, but
Yeah.
as a provider is working with somebody um, and treating them, it's really about finding not just the sort of destination weight, but the place where your health markers are where they should be. You are feeling what you want to feel. Is it confident? Are you? What were your goals coming in?
Mhm.
Was it like I
Yeah.
know Billy, you had said that one of your goals was to prevent diabetes and to
Yeah.
increase energy. Are you feeling more energy?
Mhm.
How are your H1C and your fasting glucose looking? You know,
Yeah.
are they looking great? But you might be at a goal weight that, or at a weight that is higher than what somebody might say is a goal weight.
Yeah.
Maybe that's okay. That's
Maybe
okay.
it's yeah.
You know, so it's
Maybe that's okay for now. Like, I think
exactly
right?
that's
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
is it. If we're going to talk about obesity as a disease, a chronic condition,
Right.
we have to recognize that this is not a one and done fix it thing. This is a fluid journey
Yeah,
through
absolutely.
your life. And so
As is the body, right?
exactly.
It's
Yes,
not
indeed.
static.
And
Yeah.
what's working right now is working right now. And if it's not working later, we'll work on that when that comes.
Yeah.
And so yeah,
And then
that's
there's
a
more
long answer.
medicines, right? Like, no, it's a great answer. But there's more medicines coming too, right? And we learn more and more. Like you're saying, we've got more studies and more indications, and we've got triple agonists and other people doing adding amylin and all these different things to see how it can
Mhm.
affect. And I think it would be really interesting to see how possibly these things could take you a little bit further. But I do think that there are many people that we meet that are like, well, I've been on these stalls and I've had this and now I've been on the plateau and is this it? And what am I doing more? Because I will tell you, as someone who struggled with obesity forever, what I seen in my community for those who are similar to me is that they blame themselves. They
Mm,
blame themselves and they're like, it's my fault I can't lose anymore. Right. But ultimately, I think it's sort of we get to this, the doctors on the show talk about getting to this set point, right?
yeah.
And that's kind of where you are for now. And I think
Yeah.
it's really good though that Ro considers that, like in the way that you treat the patients, because
Mhm.
there are many there I'm telling you, I mean, I interview them, there are many places that don't. And I think it's great that you guys are always having conversations about that. I really do.
Oh,
You know?
holistic. Hmm.
Yeah, very holistic. Yeah. Because it's about like you said, like your goals. And I think having Colleen and Billy and then like myself and Kat as different examples of why we get here. I've heard people say before, like, well, it was your fault. Like you ate like crazy and you got there. But I think it's interesting how we're willing to dismiss that away and tell people they're undeserving, right? But at the same time, if someone were to say smoke, right, and get lung cancer, and then they get to the point where they need to be treated for their cancer, nobody looks at them and go, nope, sorry, you're a throwaway person because you smoked and you knew better, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and like that's because that would be barbaric, right? And this is very similar. Like, I think like there are lots of reasons. It's very multifactorial why people struggle with obesity or have obesity. And so I think it's cool that like there's a path forward. Like I think that, and if you're listening, friends, and you're at that stage where you hit these stalls and plateaus, like I think it's very important to understand that like stalls happen and plateaus will happen or else something is wrong. You do want to eventually stop, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, because you don't want to like wither away. I mean, I don't know. Maybe skinny talk does. Ha ha, bad joke. Bad joke. But when it comes to stalls and plateaus, and then we can kind of land the plane. A lot of people, get to places where they won't lose, or they'll say, "I'm in a stall. How do I break a stall? How do I break a stall?" I'm
Mm,
telling you, that's one of the most common things that are searched for, or that
yeah.
we're asked in lives. Next to what do I eat? And when it comes to stalls, like what's going on within the body there, and is there really things you can do to break stalls, or is it time and treatment? You know?
Yeah, it's kind of all the above. And it
Mm,
depends on you as an individual and what your individual treatment is and where you are. And so if you without the medication, we talked already about the whole like set point idea. As you lose weight, you get to a certain point and your body says, hey, wait a minute, we got to bring you back to where you were because you're not supposed to be down here. With GLP-1s, if you think about it, like for those who are watching on the video as opposed to the podcast, you'll see I have my hand up.
yeah.
All right, let's say we've got these 5 receptors in the brain for GLP-1, and the natural GLP-1 that's floating around your body, maybe you've got enough to cover up this one And so you have this one little receptor out of the 5 that are helping to combat cravings and make you feel full and help with addiction and everything else that we know GLP-1s
Mhm.
do. And then you take the medication, and let's say you're on semaglutide, Wegovy or Ozempic, and let's say Wegovy, the highest approved dose is 2.4 milligrams. So now let's say we cover these two, okay?
Mhm.
So now we have 3 out of 5 of these receptors in the brain that are covered. That's going to bring you to a certain place in terms of weight loss, which is why we see the same numbers in all the clinical trials. The average person on 2.4 milligrams of semaglutide is going to lose roughly 15% of their body weight over the
Mhm.
course of a year to 68 weeks.
Mhm.
Okay? It's the same number every time. Last year, there was a trial called Step Up, which looked at higher doses of semaglutide.
Mm.
And guess what? Now you have a higher dose. You're covering, let's say, all 5 of those
Mm.
5 receptors in your brain. And so with that higher dose, they saw that people are able to reach a plateau that has even more weight loss than the 15% we saw with 2.4.
Wow.
So part of it is the effect of the medication. The effect of the medication is essentially bringing you to a certain level based on
Mhm.
the dose. And I'm not recommending that anyone take more than what is approved.
No, of course
Just
not.
to a point where
Eventually,
we know
maybe.
that it's safe and approved.
Yeah.
But there are also things that you can do without necessarily changing your medication. And this is where, like, through the Row platform, the providers really try to help. So
Yeah.
they may notice that you've hit a plateau, and maybe you are on a medication. Let's say you're on semaglutide, but
Mhm.
Tirzepatide, like Zepbound, will get you to greater weight loss, and they might reach out and say, "Are you interested in switching medications because this can get you this different number?"
Mhm.
Um, or you have RN coaches who have a wealth of articles and videos that we've made that can help to tap through different areas. So I've listened to a number of episodes, and like Kat, I know that you are big on fitness and like workouts. Your
Yeah.
legs and your back are the biggest muscles in your body.
Mhm.
As you build those muscles, let me go back. We know that muscle has a higher metabolic rate
Yes.
than adipose out of fat tissue does. Okay, so
Mhm.
as you build more muscle, your metabolism increases. It's easier to lose weight and keep it off. Well, your legs and your back are the largest muscles in the body, and so when you build those muscles in particular, you're more likely to have more muscle growth and also potentially increase your body's levels of growth hormone, which then
Mm.
makes it easier to build muscle in the rest of your body. And so you end up with greater muscle growth, increased metabolism, and a higher likelihood of losing weight and keeping it off. And essentially, potentially breaking through a plateau if it was not something that you were doing prior to that plateau.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
So there are things that can be done to try and like
Interesting.
tweak and adjust past a plateau.
Yeah.
But again, like if you look at clinical trials for whatever medication you might be on, you're going to see that there's a percentage that's pretty similar
Mhm.
across all people taking that medication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of stalls, I've had a lot of doctors say, listen, it's got to be at least 4 weeks with no movement before you're in a stall. Do you agree with that?
Um,
Like
yeah,
no movement on the scale. I didn't mean no movement like you don't move, but you know.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Um, I'd say yes, only because it's a good enough time to see is this a temporary change. I mean, I think
Mhm.
the reason I'm kind of hedging on this is
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
there's more than just like a straight answer on that
Yeah.
without necessarily digging into what's happening with that individual person.
Yeah.
What else has gone on
Like a
over maybe these
general thing.
previous 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Have there been changes in your sleep, your stress levels, your
Yes.
all kinds of things that
Yeah.
could have
So many
contributed to
factors.
this, as opposed to saying like this is your natural plateau and
Yeah.
stall.
Right.
Yeah.
Does Row help you like if say like that you had increased stress, are there ways that they suggest like for you to reduce stress or any kind of education around that in the platform?
Yeah, so we have we've got a whole host of articles and videos and things that providers can share and the RN coaches can share with patients when any of these things come up. I, in a former life, used to teach mindfulness and meditation to medical students at Georgetown and also to parents in my practice, because parenting these days has a little bit of stress involved.
Yeah.
And so we have, like, I've recorded and available for patients mindfulness eating or mindful eating meditations, self-compassion meditations.
Mm,
We know that
yeah.
just because the number on the scale may have changed and the shape of your body may have changed, a lot of the scar tissue from the emotional scars over the
Mhm.
years,
Yeah.
we've got to work through those too. We have a wonderful psychology advisor, Dr. Rachel Goldman, who has made a whole
Dr.
bunch of videos for us. She's great.
Mhm.
And they cover a lot of things, stress related, anxiety related,
Yeah.
relationship related. You know, personal story, my mom has dealt with challenges with her weight ever since having me and my brother, which is a really common experience for
Right.
a lot of women. And I love my dad to pieces, but I also watched him for years give my mama a really hard time about her weight. Of course, now he's older and his metabolism's changed and he has obesity himself,
Mm,
which has changed those conversations in that house.
yeah.
But Dr. Rachel has videos for us on how do I talk to my partner about
Mm,
Mhm.
my goals, about taking a GLP-1 if maybe my partner isn't really on board with the idea of GLP-1s and thinks they're cheating.
Yeah.
How do I hang out with friends who, when my habits have changed and the way that we used to bond before was over food?
Mhm.
How do I deal with that? So yes, we have a lot of material that's available when people do feel like stress or just other aspects of life that aren't necessarily thought of when you're just thinking of I want to lose weight or get medical
Yeah.
treatment for weight loss. All those things are still there and they come up, and so we try to help people through those.
That's great. I love that, Dr. Steve. I think that the whole idea of treating obesity one size fits all makes no sense. So I think
Yeah,
it's cool that you guys are considering all those things.
yeah.
Go ahead, Kat.
Oh, got a question.
I know.
You mentioned this in sort of. I'm gonna. I'm gonna. We're gonna go back. I'm gonna go back a
Sure.
few minutes. You mentioned the potentially testing GLP medications for gut flora,
Mm.
and that made me think of what is all the rage right now. Everyone's talking about leaky gut, anti-inflammatory diet, and are those two linked? And could that link to GLP-1 alleviating a leaky gut? And could you just tell me what a leaky gut is?
I
I
don't
don't.
know what it is.
Yeah,
Doesn't
sure.
sound good.
Sounds terrible.
Right?
It doesn't sound great, right?
It's all over the TikToks and the IGs and everything.
Oh,
So,
really? I have not seen that. You're on Licky Gut Talk. Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. The the lining of your gut has more surface area than your skin, than the rest of your body by far. I forget the actual numbers. I have a
fascinating.
friend who's a gut health specialist, and he has really fun ways to
Cool.
talk about all this stuff.
Ooh, we should have him on.
Um, and put it out there, from your mouth on out,
Yeah.
it's exposed to the outside world.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are chock full of organisms, bacteria and fungi, yeast, um, all throughout our GI tract, and they play a huge role in our body's immune system. They're actually the largest part of our body's immune system, because that tract is essentially constantly exposed to the outside world. And then you add to that we eat things from outside our body. And so those organisms are mostly there to help us. However, there are all kinds of bacteria and organisms can be there. And so we talk about some as good bacteria and bad bacteria. The bad ones sort of lead to more inflammation, more problems. The good ones have all kinds of benefits. We know they can actually help out with mental health. There are certain types of gut bacteria that we know people who have anxiety and depression have less of those bacteria. So it's a really, really interesting field. So pull up the hands again. Inside your intestine, you have these little finger-like projections in your small intestine. They're called villi. And you absorb nutrients and food all through there. And also, again, this is exposed to the outside world. And so other things can be absorbed through there. We have all these gut bacteria and organisms that line these villi, these little fingers inside the intestine. And the leaky gut theory, essentially, like to really simplify it, is that if you have those bacteria are in balance, so you have too many of the bad bacteria that lead to inflammation. When you have inflammation there, these little fingers are absorb things that are not supposed to absorb. And so what ends up happening then is you now have compounds and chemicals and such that your body's not meant to absorb at those levels. That can then get into your bloodstream, lead to inflammation elsewhere, get to the brain and causes problems. I think what I'm really interested in seeing is that because we hear from so many people that when they're taking a GLP-1, they are often finding it easier to make healthier food choices. And I often hear more plants. And we know that all the good bacteria inside the gut, the food they eat is fiber from plants. So this friend of mine, who is a gut health specialist, talks about eating as many different types of plants as you can, because that will then deliver as many different types of plant-based fiber to these gut bacteria, which can then ensure that you are feeding as wide a range as possible to really strengthen up those little villi and the rest of the lining inside your gut and prevent against this idea of having a leaky gut.
Yeah. Interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's really neat. It's really neat.
Yeah,
it's a
whole gut
really
episode.
GI doc, huh?
Yeah. So, Colleen and Billy, I want to, before we finish up, is there any questions that came up in this that you wanted to dig in deeper with Dr. Steve about? Is there anything curious? Where you're like, oh,
I didn't know we got to ask questions.
Yes. Well, if if you get something, if you feel something, the spirit moves you,
Yeah, I think more of a comment than a question here. I think it's really great, and I'd used some of those and reviewed some of those kind of relational videos that are in a row. That was a big part of my journey was how do I talk to it? How do I talk about it to people? Right? I mean, it's hey, you're still kind of young. Why don't you just go to the YMCA, or why don't you just do these things, right? And how to talk to the wife about it. And I'm I work in a pretty high stress technology environment, and how to balance all of that with it. So again, kudos to that team for having such great resources for us, because it's not all about take the shot and watch it happen, right? We're people and have families and lives that we work around. So I would highly recommend checking those out for anybody that hasn't yet. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I think that's great. I want to make sure people know. So, if you are on your GLP-1 journey now, especially when you're seeing this episode, maybe you are losing access, because of insurance, or maybe you're wanting to start, or maybe that, things have changed with availability of compound for you. I would really advise you guys before you start, bear with me on this. I'm going to be careful. Before you choose to go with an online provider to where it's just a shopping cart experience and that you don't have any care, you're not speaking with a clinician or have access to a clinician to ask questions, or you can't get on the phone with someone or something like that. If you're just buying medicine and you're on your own and it's like a supplement situation, I would really ask you to consider options like Ro, where they can really care for your full health, because this is a long-term thing. It's not when I think quick fix, it's not, I don't mean quick fix like what we're thinking, like phentermine and stuff in the past. I mean that if you have obesity, you have a disease and you deserve and are worthy of care. And I want to make sure that Plus Size partners with, clinicians that feel that way, and people like Ro that feel that way and that have that kind of support for you. So if you're interested in that, you can use our link and go ro.co/plus sides. Don't forget the Z. Plus size. Okay? And you
indeed.
can go and look at the program and look at what they offer. They have access where they can get you Zepbound now. I mean, it's like under $400 for up to 10 milligrams. It's very close to what people are paying for compound Tirzepatide. So please consider that before you go the other way, because there are other options and it's easy to panic. And I just want to make sure that you know there are solid, safe, good choices for you. So, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have this episode. So thank you so much for your time, everybody. We really, really
Thank you so
appreciate it
much.
and giving it a good insight into what this program is like so people can consider it. And other than that, we will say hasta la pasta to our people, and we will have all the links in the show notes for you so that you can follow Colleen and Billy. And thank you so much for your time, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So much for having us.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper, with results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on The Plus Side, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Side's podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to The Plus Side's Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.